Okay, good morning. Thanks, EJ. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about having an opportunity to just tell our story a little bit. For the last 18 months, it's been an exciting journey. First, as the CIO for Energizer Holdings in St. Louis, based in St. Louis. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that story, and I will provide enough time at the end to do some Q&A, because consumer products, the industry is changing, it's evolving. There's a lot of consolidation. There are a lot of separations that are occurring, so we're not unique, and this story isn't unique. So hopefully this will be something that will resonate as we move forward. So I'm the former CIO for Energizer Holdings. My current title is CIO and Vice President of Global Business Services for Edgewell Personal Care. And basically, you're all familiar with the bunny, the Energizer bunny. The bunny is over 25 years old now. So this is an iconic brand that we're all familiar with, and from that standpoint, it was pretty exciting being involved in the company from that standpoint. I used to go through, when I would travel, I would go through customs, and frequently people would ask me, well, what were you doing while you were traveling? And what company do you work for? And I said, I work for Energizer. And they said, Energizer, what's that? And I said, the bunny. Oh, yeah, the bunny. Iconic brand. So I've been in the industry in consumer products principally for many years, 20 years as a CIO. This is now officially the 5th CIO role that I've been in. A lot of the work that I've done has been around transformational change. I've been involved in a number of ERP evaluations, and many of those included SAP, and a lot of M&A, over 12 acquisition, integrations, divestitures. While in seed in 2 CIO roles, I was in companies that were sold. So I went through that process of being sold in the CIO seat. And I also, most recently, just went through this separation, global separation. So I've been around the block in regards to M&A. Before I proceed from an M&A standpoint, how many of you, show of hands, have been involved in some kind of M&A over the last year or so? And how many of you, so a fair number of you, how many of you have been involved in a separation of your organization into 2 publicly traded companies? So a few of you have been involved in that process. So it was really interesting. It was a really interesting process to go through. And so what I want to do is, there are 3 takeaways that I would like to leave you with in regards to this presentation. First is around the corporate restructuring journey of Energizer, and what was that Energizer, how did we grow, and then also the creation of a new personal care company. When you separate into 2 publicly traded companies, one of the companies is going to need a new name, new branding, and that is a whole process. And then 3, the examples of Edgewell and Energizer's investment with SAP, and also the overall SAP ecosystem, because it was essential to the overall program. So from a standpoint of the actual restructuring journey, a little bit of history. Energizer was a spin-off from Ralston Purina back in 2000. And prior to Ralston Purina, it was part of Union Carbide. And the Eveready brand was sold to Ralston Purina, and then ultimately in 2000 it was spun off. The business was about $1.9 billion back in 2000, and with about $436 million in segment profits. So it was a pretty good business, and quite frankly, a very profitable business when you look at the battery business between Duracell and Energizer. They have a large total segment of battery share worldwide, and it's a very profitable business that throws off a lot of cash. So in terms of looking at sort of the history, is that starting back in 2000, we were about $1.9 billion, and we grew to around $4.4 billion by the end of fiscal 14. And basically that was it was around a 6.2% CAGR on the top line and around 12.5% total shareholder return on the bottom line. So a very good investment for shareholders over that period. And there was about $3 billion in cash that was returned to shareholders during this term. So with all of the cash that was generated by this business, Energizer entered into personal care. They were in the household products business with replacement batteries, and they entered into the personal care business in 2003 with the purchase of Schick Wilkinson-Sword from Pfizer. And from there, they grew that business until 2008, where they expanded from wet shave, which is the Wilkinson-Sword Schick business, into fem care, infant care, and also sun care with Banana Boat and Hawaiian Tropic. And so then fast following that, they did an acquisition of Edge and Skintimate from SC Johnson. And then in 2011, further acquisition of American Safety Razor, which made them the largest privately held manufacturer of wet shave products. So many of the private label products that you buy at retail, those private label products, many of them are manufactured by Energizer through American Safety Razor. And then most recently in 2014, we acquired Carefree, Stayfree, and OB brands of fem care products from Johnson & Johnson. So basically, all of this cash was used to build out a personal care business. And so if you look at the total portfolio of brands, a pretty handsome and strong portfolio of brands, business directionally around $4.5 billion in total. And fundamentally in April of 2014, there was an announcement that was made that we were going to separate into two publicly traded companies. Why? Well, there were lots of discussions, and many of you were faced with the same kind of discussions from analysts on, well, what synergies do these two companies have? Are there opportunities to separate them, where you've got the battery business in a secular device decline, where most businesses are going to battery on board on your iPhones. The replacement battery business is in a secular decline, and so there was a decision that was made, separate them into Energizer Holdings, the household products business, which is about $1.9 billion business, and around $2.6 billion for the Edgewell personal care business, which at the time of separation announcement, we didn't know what we were going to be called. And so there was a whole process we went through to define Edgewell and why, and our reason for being. So, breaking up is hard to do. I mean, bringing businesses together and doing acquisition integrations, quite frankly, is that having done many of them, they have challenges, but the reality is that none like I've seen except for this separation. Two comparably sized organizations that were in 50 markets over 6 continents that had to be split into two companies that were publicly traded. And in addition to the separation, not only did we decide to do the separation, but we also took on 2 additional things that were significant additional burdens to the process. First, we did a restructuring of all of our go-to-market globally. And that took a tremendous amount of effort to really look at EMEA, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and identify how are we going to restructure and use this as an opportunity to put both businesses in the best possible place post-separation. And a lot of these acquisitions, there were a lot of legacy structures in place and costs that we wanted to take out so that we could move both businesses in a great place moving forward. So there was not only did we do separation, but we also did that restructuring at the same time. And in addition, we also did business process outsourcing and additional IT outsourcing that added complexity. Everything proceeded as planned. We completed the split on July 1st of 2015, so about 90 days ago. since our separation, July 1st. We selected our leaders in October of 2014, and we had to go through an entire process of actually identifying the org structures for both businesses, identifying talent selection, selecting talent across for both of these businesses to set both of them up in the best possible place. From an IT separation standpoint, there was 113 projects that we had to manage, and there was almost a $100 million budget just from an IT standpoint that were involved. So this is a very complex project. Both Energizer Holdings had around 500 applications globally, and there was entanglement in that both of these businesses were using applications across most of those applications. And so we had to basically clone these applications globally and set both businesses up with their own separate infrastructures and their own separate application footprints. So a very complex undertaking. The overall program for Energizer was somewhere between $300 and $400 million of cost to do the separation. Although when you look at the actual effect of that, it had the effect of increasing the value of the company by a couple $2 billion. So when you look at the actual return on investment, it was quite substantial. So that's Energizer Holdings. So what about the new company? How did we build this new company? The vision, mission, values, and the branding of Edgewell Personal Care. Our tagline for Edgewell is reimagining personal care. And first, we created a leadership team, which I'm fortunate enough to be a part of as the CIO and Vice President of Global Business Services. We created a vision and mission and our values, and we also had to come up with a name. And we came up with the name Edgewell because our heritage is in wet shave, so we put an edge on a product, but we also want to be on the edge of innovation. And so that's edge, and then on the well side, it's about wellness, personal wellness, and how do we create products that delight our consumers and that put us and that we can be proud of. Our mantra is that we challenge to win. We're a smaller player at around $2.6 billion, but we're basically a startup, in effect a $2 billion global startup as a new pure play personal care business, Edgewell Personal Care. So I'd like to introduce to you a little bit about Edgewell Personal Care.
The hummingbird, smaller than some, but faster. Wings beating up to 200 times per second. Agile, pivoting when conditions change. Strong, flying 3,000 miles in a single migration. Focused and innovative, defying gravity. The hummingbird is a challenger, like us, the perfect symbol for our new company. But what do we call our new company? We are on the leading edge of innovation, with an edge to win. A company that puts its creativity and passion into developing products that are well-designed, well-made, and deliver well-being. We are Edgewell Personal Care.
The hummingbird captures who we are as challengers and innovators. And our name captures what we do as a personal care company where well-being is the ultimate goal. We are Edgewell Personal Care. A company born from the values of passion, integrity, respect, teamwork, and initiative.
We are 8,000 colleagues strong, with over 25 brands sold in more than 50 countries. Together, we are reimagining good mornings, endless summers, beauty, bonding, confidence, and determination. We are visionaries, doers, makers, thinkers, engineers, idealists, and team players. We will lead the industry by following the hearts and desires of the people we serve. We will push boundaries and blaze new trails. We make products that people trust, that people use, that people love. We are Edgewell. We are reimagining personal care. We challenge to win.
Okay. So what do you think? It's pretty exciting to have been not only involved in the process of doing the separation, but also really creating a new company that is a pure play personal care company, which is a very unique situation to be in. And for someone who has been in the consumer products industry for as long as I have, it's really been a joy to be involved in it. We hired an agency to help us with the process. We came up with over 700 names. We narrowed the field of those names down to about 15 names that the leadership team vetted, and we looked at trademarks and the what those names meant in different markets globally, and then we went through and vetted that further to about 4 different names that we felt comfortable with and that passed all the regulatory and trademark requirements. And then we applied logos to those, and we went through and identified the logo that we felt most comfortable with, and the hummingbird was a logo that we thought exemplified a small, scrappy company that had a reason for being and that could make a difference, and so we're pretty excited about it. So that's the story of Energizer and Edgewell and the coming of Edgewell. And I'd like to now transition into some discussions around Edgewell and SAP and a little bit about the investments that we made in partnership with SAP. Let me frame this by saying that in doing a separation, a lot of the conversation is around what are we doing? Are we cloning these systems, or how are we, and what is the purpose of the clone of the system? Is it reasonable to clone it, or should we go a new path and put some new innovation in place? From an ECC6 standpoint, Energizer had 4 instances of SAP, and both businesses were going to need the SAP environment. Both businesses now have 3 instances of SAP ECC6. 2 of the instances were supporting the respective businesses from a manufacturing standpoint, and the other 2 instances supported both businesses from a commercial standpoint. And so the commercial instances of SAP stayed, the manufacturing instances went with the respective businesses, so we landed with 3 instances of SAP ECC6. In addition, we also had made an investment with BW on HANA that we cloned. And so both businesses have BW on HANA as the core BI infrastructure, not just with BW on HANA, but also Business Objects as the primary presentation layer. We had made also an investment with SRM from a supplier relationship management standpoint. In North America, we have it implemented in both businesses. So we separated SRM for both businesses so that both businesses have supplier relationship management. Edgewell, we decided that we were making an investment in Ariba, and I'm going to speak a little bit more about that in a moment. Our HRIS system was really not in a place where we felt that we should clone it. We made the decision to look at a new path forward, and we made the choice with SuccessFactors. I'm also going to speak a little bit more in detail about that, but SuccessFactors is an important element of what we're doing from an HRIS standpoint, and it's also something that we're actually using in production now globally, and we're doing for our first time with our merit and bonus cycle literally as we speak. Hybris we're using for distributor management, and it was a decision as we were looking at consolidating our go-to-market strategy, how would we simplify the environment. We needed a distributor portal, and we called the play with Hybris to provide a business-to-business portal for e-commerce that we could work with our distributors on, and I'll also go into that in some more depth. And also, we made the decision to go with Concur for travel and entertainment, and we will be going live across North America with Concur in February. And again, ECC6, BW on HANA, SRM, SuccessFactors, Hybris, and Concur are all solutions that are being used by both Energizer and Edgewell Personal Care. So both businesses are leveraging these solutions. The only unique outlier is our investment at Edgewell with Ariba. So I'm going to walk through a couple scenarios in more depth so that you've got a greater appreciation for what we've done. The first is around procurement. We, as I said, we've implemented SAP SRM, but in addition, at Edgewell, we are implementing Ariba Spend, SpendViz Pro, extended sourcing, and we've partnered with SAP Services to help us deliver those solutions and the value associated with those. In addition to being the CIO for Edgewell, my responsibilities have expanded to include global business services. Part of global business services at Edgewell is indirect procurement globally for Edgewell. And if we look at indirect procurement, here are the categories within indirect that we are considering as part of the scope of my team's responsibilities. And that includes, and in total, there's over $500 million of spend in indirect, crossing these categories of marketing, managed services, real estate, and vendor management. And so there's a lot of space globally of how do we actually get our arms around this. It's one of the weakest areas that we have in the company around that area of spend, and how do we really get total global visibility of spend so that we can better manage it. For fiscal 16, which for Edgewell, our fiscal year just began at the beginning of October and runs through September. And so what we've agreed and put a plan together for is a savings of around $16 million that we've promised the business that we're going to deliver. And in regards to that are not just the dollar savings, but also the days payable outstanding, looking at our vendor base, looking at the terms, simplifying our term structures, and making some headway there. And we've got some targeted improvements to improve working capital around DSO or DPO. But then how are we going to deliver it? We're going to deliver it through a lot of projects. We've estimated 400 to 500 different projects that we're going to execute. That's a lot of projects to execute. And in our discussion around how are we really going to get our arms around this, how are we going to manage that number of projects, we came to the conclusion that we were going to need to make some investments, and we've decided to do that with Ariba. In addition, we've also put some governance structure in place where we are requiring the organization, any spend that's over $200,000 has to go through procurement, where we're doing triple bidding, and that's part of that 400 to 500 projects. So, and then we also, at a lower level in the organization, there are some functions that have approached us and said, we want every project over $100,000 to go through procurement, and that's fine. We'll do that. We're happy to do that, and we would like to be a part of that. So, from an Ariba standpoint, the two primary solutions that we've partnered with SAP on are around SpendViz Pro and around extended sourcing. Two different solutions that have two different real purposes. Spend Visibility Pro provides us visibility of global spend and allows us to harmonize that data through data enrichment and classification and provide us with the ability to do strategic sourcing and really get a handle on where is our spend and how do we best manage it. It allows us to do supplier rationalization, gives us the tools to do analysis and planning, a consolidated view of the data, and allows us to do some peer benchmarking through the Ariba network. So that's a project that we're targeting over the next 6 months that we'll have implemented with a global footprint. Extended sourcing allows us to do what we call 3 bids and a buy. I have a purchase, I need 3 bids, I need to do a purchase. How do you do that, and how do you do it at speed? Because the reality is that if you have 400 to 500 projects, you better be quick, because there's only so many people you can throw at it. You need some automation. And so extended sourcing is that automation. It's helping us get our arms around that. So it allows us to solicit bids, reduce the procurement cycle time, and allows us to do those requests for proposals and also auctions. So that was procurement. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about what we're doing on the HR front and our decision to partner with SAP on SuccessFactors. We are leveraging SAP services for that. In addition to SuccessFactors, we also have made the decision to outsource payroll globally, and we've partnered with Xerox and ADP in that regard, and Deloitte was our partner in helping us do that global outsourcing. Part of global business services and the additional responsibilities that I have includes HR, global payroll, as well as what we call workforce administration. How do we get our arms around all of the colleague base globally, that 8,000 colleague base, and how do we have one version of the truth of what those folks are, and basically streamlining our business processes through simplification, standardization, and system harmonization. If you look at the overall global delivery model, this is basically our model at Edgewell. And this is also the same model at Energizer. Again, much of the strategy that we started out with over a year and a half ago, we put into place for both businesses. How are we going to land both businesses in the best possible place? So we selected SuccessFactors and are using Employee Central as that central repository. We partnered with Xerox, and we have basically what we call the HR Service Center, where colleagues can call in to call centers in the Philippines and Romania, and basically they get responses in regards to their payroll questions or anything relating to employee data. Xerox manages the ADP relationship, so our interface is really with Xerox, and then we've got other third-party integration with benefit providers, time and attendance, and back-end integration into SAP. So this is a very clean model. It's one that we, by January 1st of 2016, will have global payroll implemented for all of Edgewell. And as I said earlier, we're right in the process now of our first merit and bonus cycle leveraging SuccessFactors. So if you look at the overall footprint, there are many components of SuccessFactors. The components that are in green here are components that Edgewell and Energizer own that are part of our overall footprint. Employee Central is the heart of that because it is the employee master. Compensation is part of that and is part of the merit and bonus cycle that we're going through now and that we have live in production globally. We're also onboarding new hires with applicant tracking linkages to Lumes, which is our current solution. In 16, we'll be implementing learning and workforce analytics and performance and goals. So, and then we'll roll out the rest of these modules post 16. So we're pretty excited about it. So far, so good. We are live, and we are actually going through our merit process as we speak, which officially by the end of October, we're supposed to have all merits finalized in our first cycle. The next component that I'd like to talk about is the B2B distributor portal, where we selected SAP Hybris, and we partnered with Mindtree as a partner on this project. We felt that they brought some unique skills in regards to B2B commerce, and we were impressed with their approach. And if you look at the overall digital distribution channels and our approach, these concentric rings that you see here are really basically bands of functionality that are going to be delivered over time. What is shown in green are the basic functions that we're implementing for customer management and order management that are essential for bringing up distributors in the our initial pilot. We started in Latin America with Spanish language, and we have a successful implementation from that pilot. Then we're going to roll that out to the rest of Latin America, and then we're going on to EMEA and Asia Pacific, and we'll be rolling this out to all distributors. In Latin America alone, we have over 50 distributors. So we will be leveraging Hybris to manage the distributor relationship from a B2B portal standpoint with those 50 distributors by the end of fiscal 16. In addition to Latin America, we're also looking at North America and how we can leverage the solution for sample orders and also for manual orders that are being touched now by our customer service organization. Once we go beyond this initial scope of the solution, we'll be rolling this further out into these concentric rings as far as additional functionality, more advanced marketing, personalization, self-service capabilities, payment processing, and then also the thing that we also like about Hybris is the ability to leverage this for business to consumer longer term, and we're having some discussions around that with our commercial organization. The current scope of the Hybris implementation is as follows. It's around setting up distributors and getting their information right, processing orders, managing the catalogs, search and recommendations, all the web content and the internationalization of that in terms of language and currency, et cetera, and then integration back into our SAP environment. So the last item that I would like to share with you is what I've tagged here is reimagining ERP, and some discussions that we've been having with SAP around S/4HANA and also partnering with them not only for S/4HANA but also with SAP services to assist in actually activating the solution. Many of you have already heard, and probably yesterday, if you hadn't heard, about HANA and the overall strategy with S4. And many of you, I'm sure, are wondering where do you go, when would you go, how would you approach it, et cetera. And we're in the same camp. What we went through with SAP was some discussions of what were the capabilities that we could deliver, but we ultimately, as all of us know, is that we don't adopt technology for the sake of technology. We adopt technology to solve business problems, right? And our businesses they expect us to have value-added solutions, and they expect us to bring value back to the business, and that we've got justification for the investments that we make. Many of you also probably have had discussions with SAP from a value engineering standpoint of what are the things that we might get from an investment in S/4HANA. And as many of us see, many of these are benchmarking data, looking at information that we have around our working capital, around our SG&A as a percent of sales, and other metrics. The reality is that we all know is that we can't take this stuff to the bank because much of this is not, it's not sellable to the business in this aggregate. Most of my business partners, they want a clear line of sight to what is the savings, what's the value to the business, and how are we going to ensure that we're going to really drive the value and that the investment is worthwhile. So how we approach this is that we really started some discussions with the business and what's the use case that we can actually justify an S/4HANA investment. And we partnered with supply chain, and in the course of that partnership, with supply chain and with customer service, we identified a number of areas that we might want to approach. One of these areas was relating to, with supply chain, was around global, near real-time inventory visibility. We, as an organization at Edgewell, do not have very good visibility to our global inventory, and it's not timely. And part of the discussion that we had with the business and SAP was, what could S/4HANA do for us? We had some workshops with the business, and we basically came back and in agreement with the business on areas that we felt we could, the use case being global, near real-time inventory visibility. What would we get if we had it? How would we leverage it? What value would it drive? And we came up with some pretty substantial working capital reductions that we got agreement with the business on. And so, and in addition to the supply chain components in regards to working capital, there's also some IT savings in regards to software maintenance. When you look at the total puts and takes of maintenance, and particularly on the database side. So we have a project that we've put together that we have in our project roadmap for 16 that we're in discussions on, and we're hoping to launch this quarter. It is an S/4HANA project. The use case is around global inventory visibility, and we've got a strong partner who was willing to sign up for this with us. What I would say is that when we talk about S/4HANA, and we talk about it in the context of, well, what does it mean in regards to how do we want to approach this? We're taking this as an incremental approach. First, we're going to step a couple of our ECC instances into HANA. We're not doing anything transformational. We're just doing a technical upgrade. Then we're going to, once we step those two instances in, we'll do that in 16, and we'll focus on the use case with supply chain to deliver the value that we promised to deliver. In 17, the third instance that we have of SAP for Western Europe will consolidate into the HANA environment, and we'll knock one of that instance out. So there's no reason to put it in HANA because we're going to take it out in 17, and no reason to incur the cost of that. We'll also implement Simple Finance in 17 as part of that. We believe that there's some substantial savings opportunities in finance and controllership. They're busy closing the books after all of the work that we just did with separation, and we're going to, our focus as we move forward has got to be on how do we, stabilize things. And so we're also conscious that in 16, the business is very busy, and they've also said, there are certain projects that we're willing to move forward with if they don't require a tremendous amount of business resource. And in this particular case, in 16, we can step into HANA and we can do regression testing, and we're not going to change a lot of business processes, and we'll still be able to achieve this use case. So we're very excited about it. It's something that it's on our roadmap, and we're going to hopefully pull the trigger on this month, sometime either this month or next month. So with that, I wanted to close. What I would, in the closing comments, I would say that it's been an interesting year and a half. It's been an interesting intellectual exercise to go through. Personally, I like driving business value, and I like working on projects that I can see line of sight to business value. It's difficult sometimes to see in a separation project like this, so now I'm glad I went through it, but I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad that we've got a lot of things in front of us that we still need to do based on the roadmap that we've laid out with SAP. And so we're excited about the partnership, but we're also excited about driving the value for the business. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions, because I've left about 5 minutes to field any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Hey, Tony, really interesting. You talked about some of the costs associated with the split off.
Yes.
And I know you mentioned that they were offset by return on investment and things like that. But were those costs anticipated going in, or were they more than you sort of budgeted for?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would say that in our case, where we ended up landing was we were at the peak period of really looking at all these projects, and a lot of the cost is labor, because you need a lot of people. You need to back the trucks up with people because you need a lot of people to pull this off. At the peak, we were estimating about $100 million for IT, but I would say that the surprises were less in IT, and they were more in other areas of the business, because there are lots of components to this, and particularly when we got into discussions around go-to-market changes in Europe and Asia Pacific, where we were really restructuring and we were taking out layers of middle management. There's lots of severance costs and elements associated with that had to play into this. And so I would say that we were surprised, and we kept getting surprised as an overall business, but I think that the surprises were less in IT than they were in other areas of what we called we had a separation management office that managed the overall program. I managed the work stream for IT, but I would say that most of the surprises were in other areas. Good question. Yes?
What do you plan for CRM, contact center, mobility, and promotions?
Question was, what are we planning for CRM, contact management, promotions, and mobility? We have a mobility project that we actually had baked into 16 that we've moved to the beginning of 17, and so we do have a mobility project. We believe that the investment in S/4HANA and Fiori and the whole discussion around the user interface simplification of SAP is going to be central to that strategy from an application standpoint. So we see that as being complementary. In regards to actual promotion from a trade promotion standpoint, we have a global TPM project underway. That project is the selection of that tool was not SAP. Unfortunately, we decided to go with Oracle Demantra for that decision. We have Hyperion Financial Management, Hyperion Planning, and we just launched a project with Genpact as a partner to assist us in that project. We'll be doing a global blueprint and North America rollout of TPM this year. And in regards to CRM, we really, right now, we don't have anything more material in regards to CRM proper. Our business model is principally around serving large retailers, and right now, I don't see the line of sight to dollars that materially justify it versus other investments that we've got. Good question. Any other questions?
Hey, Tony, great presentation. With regard to demand sensing, quick question.
Sure.
With regard to demand sensing, demand signal management, any thought around roadmap and in the future there for Edgewell?
No, that's a really good question, because I know that, like many of us, is that demand planning isn't a core competency, and to say the least. And so it is something that I think is something that we need to do. I'm looking at it in the context of an intersection between integrated business planning, what the strategy is for IBP, and what we're doing with financial planning and what we're doing with customer planning. And so right now, I'm still trying to determine strategically what's the best way for all of those pieces to fit together. It is definitely a topic. It's definitely something that we think that we're going to address in 17. And one of the things that we have on our roadmap for 16 is a perfect store project that we're looking at that would, look at demand signal management, as well as what are we doing to really improve, getting product back out on the shelves to reduce out of stocks. So it is something that we're looking at. We don't really have a strategy totally formulated yet, but it's something that we're working on.